everyone, Coma Jordan here. Death Battle 2025 had just ended not too long ago, and it was better than I ever could imagined. For those who don't know or care to watch my video on 2024, not that I blame you, leaves the Chaos Emeralds all to Sage, but Sage then worries, which kinda shows that her plans are crumbling, seeing how— God, I hate how I talk to my old videos. Death Battle is a show I hold close to my heart as I've been watching it for over a decade now. It's a web series about a scientist named Wiz and a redneck named Boomstick. They host a show aiming to show which of two fictional characters would win to the fight to the death, using science, math, and lore from their source material. I definitely love this series. Through how could they delve into fictional characters that I love, and would get me into other fictional series that I never would have checked out before, as well as have a fight animation showing what would happen if these characters fought as an actual crossover. And after surviving their parent company's death twice, they were able to make a comeback with a Kickstarter to become an independent channel, with episodes that range from pretty good to perfect. Following the new beginning of Death Battle's indie era, we were given 12 new episodes with quality that most other seasons can never match. We've gotten episodes with fantastic animation, well done writing that encapsulates the love the team has for these characters, and amazing music that I listen to my playlist on repeat. So today I'll be looking back at this season to see how it all holds up, but this time I will be ranking them from worst to best to see how far the quality these episodes have gone through. But with that out of the way, let's begin with a plug. Do you know how many people who watch my videos are subscribed to the channel? 1.6%.
That's pretty fucking sad.
So if you don't mind, please help a lad out and subscribe.
Are they dead? I mean, more dead?
Starting off, we have the first episode of the season. This is a very controversial episode in the Versus community, considering what you buy for either side being that Kratos' scaling is based on lore, while Asura's scaling is based on feats done in game, hence the phrase lore man versus feats man. I must stress that I am not the most dedicated Versus debater around, so a lot of my criticisms will be based on what the episode says and whether or not that's contradictory. Starting with Kratos' analysis, it really does have a lot of love put into it. I played all the mainline God of War games barring Ascension, and I knew a ton of references going in. I love telling his development of an angry brute to a father who strives for redemption, along with having his weapons and feats from over the years worked into his story, and ending on the note of him being a defender and a symbol of hope did give me goosebumps. On to Asura's. I have played through Asura's Raft, and while I don't love it as a game, I do love the animation and the story, and I think his analysis does a great job explaining his powers and his plethora of forms, and explained his story where he only acts angry to protect those he loves, which felt very heartwarming. And now for the fight. I'm going to be fairly critical on the animation, and I want to stress, this is not hate on Devil Artemis, and let it be known, do not harass him. He was just doing the job that was given to him, and that's fine. I'm just criticizing his work as a means of improvement for whatever work he does in the future. And this applies also to any other animators who have been harassed, such as Louise in Gru vs Megamind. The beginning gets really confusing as Kratos gets randomly teleported to a temple and beats up some guards, until Asura shows up and they decide to fight. I don't get the context of a lot of this setup. It takes a while before anything happens, and the motivations for fighting feel trivial. Not that you need reasons for characters to be fighting to be deep, but for these story-focused characters, you expect more than breaking it down to a misunderstanding. Kratos is voiced by Hussein Muhammad, and he does a good job as the stoic father he was in the Norse God of War, along with pulling out his spouting rage near the end. Asura, on the other hand, is voiced by Chris Guerrero, and he does pretty good too, bringing out his wrath for a lot of his lines, along with a more somber tone at the beginning and end of the fight. The fight itself I wouldn't call bad, just very flawed. While the punches have a lot of impact to them, the problem I see is that Kratos gets barely damaged, while Asura is constantly forced into his forms in order to match Kratos. It should be noted that you should try to make the fight look more believable for the losing side to win, even if it's a stomp. Here, Kratos just brushes off most of Asura's hits without much of a struggle. Not that Asura is worth rooting for to win this fight either, since he acts like a stereotypical brute, and constantly jumps to conclusions of making him more mad. Along with not fighting strategically, as shown in his storyboards, he used Kratos' blades to his advantage. Kratos, on the other hand, while using a lot of his weapons, feels way too casual about the fight until the very end, where he goes for the killing blow and climbs up Asura with the Blade of Olympus. But I still gotta give the ending where Asura dies, saying he was never a monster, and then we see Kratos looking over Aria mourning Asura, and sees the bond between him and Atreus in them. It really is an emotional punch given these characters' stories. Along with that came an alternate ending where Asura punches Kratos into the afterlife, where Kratos reunites with his daughter, which I think is a really good callback to Chains of Olympus, and yeah, this gave me the feels too. The ending analysis I think is fine. I don't know for sure if the world tree scales to Chakravartin, but the categories do make sense of Kratos having a larger arsenal, Asura knowing how to control his rage better, and the speeds do seem relatively equal. Again, I haven't done too much research into these two in terms of scaling, so I could be wrong. Overall, the episode I wouldn't call bad. I still think it's pretty passable. The pre-analysis captured what I love about these characters, there are a lot of cool shots, and Kratos and Asura used a ton of abilities and forms, not to mention Ridley was a really mellow and dramatic track. There's just a lot of flaws with the choreography and writing itself that puts it in last place. But hey, a 6 out of 10 episode being in last place, I think they could just show how bad the season really could get. And that's far from a bad thing.
Hit the streets.
Spider-Man vs. Deku is a pretty decent episode that got put into second last place by some stiff competition. My main experience with Miles is with Spider-Verse and the PlayStation games, and I really like Miles' arc, between his insecurities in his home life and trying to fill in the hole that Peter left behind. And I've been watching My Hero Academia since high school, and I think it's a pretty good show, aside from season 5. And I really like Deku as a character, as someone who really wants to be a hero to help those in need, even if he was at his lowest. Miles' analysis is good. It is pretty samey at the season 7 analysis, besides the better editing, and the new tech he's gained, but I like the focus on deciding that he can't be Peter Parker and instead tries to make a Spider-Man of his own, along with it ending on Stan Lee's belief that anyone could don the mask to become a hero. It's enough to put a smile on your face. Deku's was also just good. Since Deku's last appearance was from season 9, not much changed aside from the ending of Deku's story. It's the same backstory, powers, and insecurities of carrying the weight of everyone in need on his back. It is better than his last analysis, just nothing too noteworthy. On to the fight, and damn, it looks beautiful. If you couldn't tell, this was animated by Moro, the same guy behind Bowser vs. Eggman. And before this episode, his last fight was Shigaraki vs. Mahito. And as his first fully 3D episode, you couldn't have gotten a better start. The cell shading was well stylized with the comic art style details, Miles and Deku move so fluently, and the effects especially were bright and colorful. Miles is voiced by Christine Mart, and he works as the laid-back side of his character, along with bringing out some good confident lines near the end. Deku is voiced by John Van Doren, who played Shoto and Ragnarok in the past, and he sounds pretty close to Justin Briner. Capturing his softer side and his battle cry was really godlike. Along with him paying respect to Miles felt very powerful. The fight itself is a friendly rivalry, which is also fun to see, though why Deku decided to travel all the way to New York to fight Miles at 5 AM is beyond me. As I mentioned, the movement of the Miles is really well animated, which combined with the choreography makes the fight very entertaining. From the way they use their abilities, spotting weaknesses, and even taking their personalities into consideration when moving the fight to the abandoned city. In the shot where the two go towards each other to reference Spider-Verse, chef's kiss. The main thing that I called bad is the death, where after Deku goes plus ultra, Miles just takes the punches while looking as stiff as a statue. I know it's the vibranium, but he could have had a better reaction, or then Miles explodes for a second time. Can't catch a break, huh? Other than that, the post-analysis does a relatively fine job making this episode look debatable, if not for the street tier memes. Though it should be mentioned that they were going easy on Miles with Deku being placed lower than he was previously, as they don't even mention his feat with Bakugo. But overall, I think this episode is pretty good. The analysis was interesting in the vacuum, the animation was slick and fun, and not to mention Yusei Danger was a pretty vibing track. Definitely give this one a look. Master Chief vs. Doomslayer was a matchup I was excited for, even though I knew the verdict from the start. With Halo, I've only played Combat Evolved, which I thought was just good. But with Doom, I've played all the classic games, 3, and the modern trilogy, and they all range from okay to peak fiction. Master Chief's analysis was fine. It covered his arsenal and toughness. My biggest complaint is that aside from covering his backstory from being a soldier trained as a child, there wasn't really anything mentioned character-wise on who the Chief is, besides being an intimidating leader. Doomslayer's was pretty good. They covered his arsenal well too, but with the added factor of covering the insanity of the Doom series, with how the Slayer's rabbit was killed, and how he couldn't stop killing demons like an addict, making him an unstoppable force. The fight itself was actually pretty good. It was done by Devil Artemis along with David Fisher. The characters moved fine, the gun and sword choreography was pretty good, and the part where Chief and Slayer fought off the demons was pretty fun. Master Chief is voiced by Philip Sacramento, and he does a pretty good job as the confident commander people see him as. Accompanying him is Kira Buckland as Cortana, which I don't have too much knowledge on Cortana, but she does a good job as a supporting voice. The Doomslayer at the end is voiced by Gianni Machagrano, which I kinda don't like the delivery of. Not only does it sound like an edgy interpretation of the Doomslayer, but the line "Rip and Tear" sounds really cringe, especially when comparing it to the straightforward "No" from Doom Eternal. Yang Ye does a decent job as Vega though. As the fight goes on, you can tell their personalities, where the Chief's more formal and a restrained soldier, while the Doomslayer acts more brutish, but you can tell a lot of Doomslayer's scenes were just him aura farming. Like, did they need to be extra of that rocket? Along that was the track Halo to Hell, which features David Levy, an artist who previously worked on Doom music. Along with him was the Death Metal fan choir, and it's not half bad, as it combines Doom's metal music with the choir acting as the Halo theme throughout. The death was fine, a bit too cruel to the Chief, but at least it fits Doomslayer's personality. The post-analysis was Chief only got AI that pretty much did nothing but disable Vega, and none of the Slayer's weapons. I also want to mention the fact that the shield feat was heavily overhyped in the pre-analysis. This, my friends, is what we call a golden tree feat, where the pre-analysis makes the characters look more impressive than they actually are, as the post-analysis retracts that feat. It's a really cheap way to hype up a character, and I believe that should stop. In short, the episode is still pretty good, if bogged down by the analysis, especially in terms of how they made the Master Chief suffer. Then again, I didn't vote for the episode, so what do I know? Again!
again, and as each one ends faster, they'll scream, "Stop killing Kenny, you bastard!"
This was an episode I wasn't the most keen on, and that was mainly because of how many arguments and media both Hulk and Godzilla had, which in turn had tons of people being toxic about it. Not to mention, it was a 5-week waiting period, so it was the longest we ever had to wait for an episode this season. Then the episode came out, and while when it first came out I thought it was just okay, I feel that was mainly because I wanted this episode over with, but after rewatching it, I actually like it a lot. For the record, I only have surface level knowledge about Hulk and Godzilla, with pretty much just the movies and the occasional show. Pretty much just a fraction of how much they both have. To start, I love the presentation of the analysis, starting with the question of who these characters really are. Given how many people see them as angry monsters, it was interesting to bring up who they were as characters. Hulk's analysis was fun and engaging going in, with his multiple personalities, how he can come back from pretty much anything, along with his immense power. Godzilla's was also pretty interesting, going into dozens upon dozens of Godzilla media, and a ton of in-jokes about his history, and while I didn't really get the hype behind Godzilla Ultima, the analysis was able to sell me about Ultima as the original origin of Godzilla as being from a higher plane of existence. On to the fight. The fight was done by Devil Artemis, David Fisher, and Luis Jets Cruz. The fight opens as Godzilla storms through a city with Hulk having to stop him. Hulk and Bruce are both voiced respectively by Blythe Mellon, and he does a pretty nice job voicing both, acting with the Hulk's aggression and Banner's calm concerned demeanor. With every single bit of destruction, you could feel the impact of these two destroying the city and each other. Not to mention the atmosphere with the song Madness of the Monster being a climactic end track you could imagine being in a full movie. When Hulk kills Godzilla, you could feel like it was the end, but when Ultima enters, everything changes as the architect floods the city with his presence. As Banner realizes what he has to do, the fight keeps going, as the cycle of death keeps them raging at each other for possibly weeks on end before Banner could find a solution, until Ultima is ultimately sealed away, as you could feel Banner's relief as Godzilla is gone for good. My only gripe with the fight is once Banner says, "I think I understand," you can definitely tell the fight was going to end with Hulk winning, as the rest of the fight had Banner monologuing how he was going to win, which, while climactic as a movie, kinda throws off the possibility Godzilla could win as a death battle. The post-analysis was really interesting to go through, as both were completely unstoppable and unkillable, emphasizing that this fight was never going to end unless either could do anything to stop them from respawning, to which it makes sense that Goji could never destroy the Green Door, while Bruce can turn Archetype against Ultima. Overall, an epic episode. While this is one of the last episodes Devil worked on Death Battle for, I respect him and everyone who worked on this episode, turning it from an episode I had no interest in into one that was absolute cinema.
Hold on, guys. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Blade vs. Buffy was Death Battle's return to live-action fights, and it delivered hard. Blade I've pretty much only seen the movies for, and I have no connection to Buffy, so I barely have any bias going in. Blade's analysis was pretty good. It really sells Blade as an aura farming cool guy, though the vampires are real running joke was kinda worn out by the end. His arsenal was well covered, and his family drama was quite interesting. Buffy's analysis was also fun. As an outsider, it was a pretty good introduction to the Buffy franchise, along with going into the drama of Buffy's fate, of being killed and gaining an entourage to help the monsters felt pretty heartfelt. The fight was amazing, and yes, we were only at number 8. Why do you ask? The costumes were well done. Along with this being the most actors being used in the live action fight, it really helps make the world feel whole. The track is Neon Ash, which is a pretty good instrumental track. It starts with a funky dance club theme, before transitioning to a fast, more intense score, before ending with the Buffy theme song. Blade is played by Fiction Stiegel, and he does a pretty nice job. While his voice has a higher pitch than what Blade has normally, him swinging his sword along with his aura farming scenes were pretty cool. And to the guy who complained that the Death Battle team couldn't get Wesley Snipes can actually get fucked, Buffy is played by Mare Mulroney, whose previous works include Darman.
Hey, where's mine?
Oh, you wanted some too? Well, there was really only enough for the two of us, and we didn't have any chicken flavor cake.
Still does pretty good though. Other than that, all the actors including Marv and Smosh do a good job as extras during the ritual and when Blade and Buffy kill them all. The choreography of the fight itself, while really good, could have given Buffy more hits as Blade overpowers her throughout the entire fight until the end, but the scenes we have are really good as the camera work and hits really sell the impact of the fight, along with various set pieces to make the set feel real, from the club to the bathroom to the bar. And then when Buffy pulls out the scythe, you could tell it's their final stand, as every cut from their blades feels like it hurts. And we see Blade shows his intense face for the kill, before Buffy impales and decapitates Blade. Hot damn. The post-analysis was pretty clear-cut. The categories make sense as Buffy having a clear counter to a lot of Blade's abilities, though they lost me at the part where they mentioned Buffy decapitating a universal being. So yeah, it was no question she'd win. This is the best live-action episode to date. Engaging analysis, and a fun fight with tons of passion and love put into the cinematography. Overall, a great episode.
Today is gonna be a fucking happy day!
Despite
Despite barely knowing these characters that well, I really wanted this matchup as these characters were really cool to have fought each other. While I'm not that familiar with Ghost Rider outside of the external media, I really like him as an intimidating force. While with Spawn, I have watched the first 3 seasons of the animated series, and yeah, he definitely is an aura farmer. With Ghost Rider's analysis, I thought it was good, with how it balances Johnny and Zarathus's power, with the story of how Johnny was constantly possessed, along with mentioning the other Ghost Rider members, which I thought was neat. Spawn's was the best you could get when his story is kind of one note, as you get his backstory and how he killed God and Satan. You also get his side into how he was an icon of his time, and how he became the king of hell, rising up against those giving him orders. Not the greatest, but still interesting. The fight is the best sprite fight of the season. Oh wait, it's the only sprite fight. Oops. The animation was done by Zach Watkins, and he does a good job with how the sprites animate into motion and movement, along with the hand draw bits for the close-up shots, which look really clean. Ghost Rider is voiced by Stephen Kelly, and he sounds fine as a casual Johnny Blaze, but as he transitions to Zarathos, you could feel the intimidation of his vengeful voice, especially with his monologue near the end. Spawn is voiced by Ray Hurd, and I'm not gonna lie, I actually thought they had Keith David for this role. He sounds insanely like Spawn from the animated series, which I have to commend him for. From his metal brooding to his screams in agony when his wings get torn apart, amazing job. The fight was accompanied by Hell's Angels featuring Tyson Yen, and this is absolutely one of my favorite songs this season, with the metal instrumental accompanied by the lyrics, imposing the never-ending terror these characters have to go through. And the part where the song goes "Brings Me Back" as Spawn gets thrown to hell gives me chills. The fight itself also gets really out there, as you can see tons of Spawn's abilities being used well, Zarathos being utilized more than he was last time, along with Hell and Heaven constantly changing as Zarathos and Divine Spawn fight was really cool. Not to mention the dialogue, I'd argue is some of the best written in the series, as the flow of monologues is designed to give you goosebumps. While some people don't care much for how the death was done, I was personally freaked out by it, as it was the first time I actually saw Zarathos put in fear, as he himself has to go through every single pain, and the extension of the sinner's sins, actually badass. The post-analysis does a good job explaining that while Zarathos has the power advantage, he had no way to actually kill Spawn for good, while Spawn had a leg up in almost every other way. Overall, a refreshingly great episode after Kratos vs. Asura. From the writing to the cool factor to the music, it was one hell of a ride.
No, you don't. It is back to Nemesis management therapy for you, Wile E.
Now we have the winner of the Tournament of Champions, one that I was really excited for given the extensive history of these characters, especially when the discussion over the waiting period was everyone bringing up Wile E and Tom's war crimes. Both analyses are really well done, as both characters have so many weapons and survivability by Toon Force, which makes them both entertaining to watch, along with what media they decided to bring in, like Tiny Toons or Tom and Jerry Chase, which makes the scaling and powers even crazier. The fight was done by Luis, and it was really well done, as the hand-drawn animation feels fluid and the body language captures what people love about these characters. And while the fight isn't as intense as Scooby vs. Courage, it tries to do its own thing as it acts as a normal chase cartoon. My main gripe is that most of Wile E and Tom's arsenals are never used, when I felt they could have made the fight more interesting beyond the typical tropes. But still though, the spirit is there, as there are moments like the war scene, and Tom observing the loony DNA dissolver before reacting actually made me laugh. And while Wild Tomfoolery was honestly the weakest track of the season, that's mainly because of the stiff competition, along with it just trying to be a cartoony track, combining the instrumentals of Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry. And the death was handled pretty well, as the loony DNA dissolver both hit them with the tension rising, and the fake out worked as you'd expect Wile E to die before the front of the house crushes Tom. The post-analysis was fun, as the pre-analysis showed how crazy these characters could get against each other. We see how they evened out and edged out, which I was caught off guard by how Tom was lacking in the end, I must admit. I also do like how Wile E's rules were implemented, to show that Wile E can still win against opponents since the rules don't apply. This was indeed a fun and loony episode, which shows the extent of how far a Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry episode could get, with how the animation and tone are just right to make it work.
That dirty double-crossing stupid anime haircut son of a—
Dante vs. Clive was an episode that had a lot of excitement and ignorance behind it. It was the episode to feature the return of veteran Death Battle animator Torian, who animated some of the best classic 3D episodes, like Iron Man vs. Lex Luthor, Solid Snake vs. Sam Fisher, and Hulk vs. Doomsday. And while it was great to have him back, the matchup was the butt of many jokes, as very little of the Death Battle community knew who Clive was. While I do love Dante along with the Devil May Cry series for the most part, I currently haven't finished Final Fantasy 16 to know who Clive was. Dante's analysis was really good, as it shows how much of a badass he is, casually killing divine beings, along with the tragedy of his lost family, and learn to reconnect with his brother and nephew. Clive's analysis was very informative of who Clive was, as a hero fighting against gods, along with highlighting his relationship with his brother Joshua. And now for the fight. It starts off before Clive's fight with Ultima, as Dante was hired to hunt Clive down. Dante is voiced by Luca Xavier, and while there are some lines that sound a bit too deep, he does encapsulate the fun-loving attitude Dante embodies. Clive is voiced by Will De Renzi Martin, and while I'm not familiar with Clive Clive's voice, he does sound like how I imagine him being, as a gruff and tough medieval warrior. Start of the fight is really fun, as Dante uses a plethora of crazy weapons, while Clive tries to keep up with his icons. Then we got Dante riding down his motorcycle with a reference to what the hell is this, since, you know, Clive doesn't know what a motorcycle is in his time. And then we have the Devil Trigger matching Ifrit's power with tons of fast slashes, with the track ramping up in intensity, the track being The Devil Inside, which combines the death metal reminiscent of Devil May Cry, with the emotional orchestra of Final Fantasy XVI. Then as Dante goes into the sky, we then have their fight as Sin Devil Trigger and Ifrit Arisen. It's intense, climactic, and exciting. Then as they return to Earth, they make one last stand to take each other out, slowly moving their blades towards each other, showing a struggle, until they throw their blades at each other, showing that Dante got taken out. Absolute cinema. The end analysis was pretty interesting, showing that both were evenly matched in terms of stats and abilities, showing that it relied on whose form can outlast the other, to which Clive had the better time limit and more reliable healing factor. This was a banger episode, showing the passion of Torian's work on display, along with providing insight into who Clive is to the uncultured Death Battle community. Once again, Moro is back with another big episode, Shigaraki vs. Mahito. I was pretty excited for this episode when it was announced, not just because Shigaraki and Mahito are interesting characters, but because I knew from the start that Shigaraki would butcher Mahito's curse ass. Yeah, I'm a good fan of My Hero and Jujutsu Kaisen, but it's pretty clear that one was sympathetic and the other was made to be hated. Shigaraki's analysis was god tier. They delve into his tragic backstory, his dumb quirky dialogue, and how he just wanted to be saved in the first place. It shows how deep the Death Battle team can be, showing who the combatants are as characters. Mahito's was also good in the opposite way, as it shows how Mahito is nothing but nihilism and suffering, as he inflicts it on other people, making it all the more satisfying when Yuji chases him down. The fight starts in the subway where Mahito proceeds to kill a bunch of people, including the baddie Akane, who everyone became down bad for that she even got a shirt. Shigaraki then offers to have Mahito join, to which Mahito refuses, then starts the fight. Shigaraki is voiced by Tom Schalk, and he does a pretty good job as the quiet but bitter tone of Shiggy. Mahito is voiced by Sean Chiplock, and he embodies the unhinged rage bait of Mahito's personality. The track is called Skin Deep, being our second Japanese track after Akari. It really captures the intensity of Shiggy and Mahito's powers, that being touching anything and you die. We get tons of uses of Shigaraki and Mahito's powers, like Idol Transfiguration being used against Nomu, Mahito morphing his body to mess with Shigaraki, or Mahito using clones to jump Shigaraki before decaying them. They then turn to their forms on the train, and the mix of 2D and 3D was really well done as they blended in with each other. Then we got the domain expansion, which caught a lot of people off guard. You can feel the struggle that Shigaraki losing his vestiges, as Mahito taunts him about his childhood. Then Mahito is faced with All for One in a reflection of Sukuna, as the domain expansion wears off. Then Mahito runs away like a pussy as Shigaraki tells him off and decays his head. At this point, I was losing my shit watching Mahito run away. The post-analysis makes a ton of interesting points, as it was reliant on if Shigaraki could do anything to kill a curse, as without it, his stats wouldn't matter, until mentioning that vestiges are similar to souls, which Mahito's can be damaged, giving Shigaraki the opportunity to kill Mahito. Definitely an amazing episode, showing the love and hate for these characters, as well as stellar animation, as well as their powers and personalities.
I would love to. Absolutely. Don't do it, Ruby. No, it's okay. I can do this.
Ruby vs. Maka is an important episode, as it was a promise made by the Death Battle team to honor Ruby's late creator Monty Ohm. Despite many people's gripes with Ruby, I overall still like the series, and Ruby is too charming to have me hate her. Soul Eater I'm definitely a good fan of, as I have watched the anime and read the manga for. Besides Soul Eater not, because why should I? Ruby's analysis filled me with a lot of nostalgia, reintroducing the world of Remnant with a fresh lens, along with showing the development of Ruby, from an energetic warrior aiming to fight and defend, to an anxious warrior who held the weight of the world at such a young age. My only gripe is with the end, where they just brush off how she got over her stress. Maka's analysis does a way better job of explaining the world of Soul Eater than Kronos ever did, going into Maka and Soul's bond, and the guilt Maka felt over Soul's injuries, and how they triumphed to defeat Asura. Really well done. Now for the fight, which is honestly the best looking fight of the season, being done by Luis for his first fully 3D animated fight, along with Devil Artemis. All the models and effects look stylized and bright. The fluidity is unmatched, and the backgrounds have a sense of dark and spooky atmosphere to it. Maka is voiced by Ginger Sue, and she does pretty well as a slightly older sounding dubbed Maka. Soul Eater Evans is voiced by John Van Doren, and he sounds perfect as Soul, as the nonchalant teenager part of Soul, to his more encouraging cries when Maka struggles with the silver eyes, and Ruby Rose has her official voice actress Lindsay Jones, and no notes. She's fun and energetic and gets to be serious near the end, and her screams when she dies really had a lot of impact to it. The highlights from the fight range from Maka and Soul keeping up with Ruby's tornado, Soul and Crescent Rose constantly matching each other, Ruby's comedic moments as well as remembering her fangirling over weapons, and especially the moment where Soul goes down on the piano. The track Death and Bloom is absolutely amazing, especially when it features not only Miria Schelt as the Japanese vocalist, but also Casey Lee Williams, the main singer of Ruby songs. It's fast, emotional, and engaging, especially during the the line, "I wish you can see me now," a possible reference to Monty Ohm's Wish. The death was also handled perfectly, highlighting Ruby's last chance to win, Maka and Zol's partnership to pull through, and when it's all said and done, Maka sparing Ruby's soul seeing who Ruby really was. The post-analysis was pretty typical. Strength, powers, and speed make pretty good sense, and the sorcery bit was a pretty decent pity point for Ruby. Overall, a fantastic episode, with only a few minor hiccups. This is an episode I absolutely love, and I bet you if Monty saw this fight, he truly would be proud.
I win times infinity. Well, I win times infinity plus 1. And then your series ends with a giant kaiju mech made of platinum, more platinum than exists on the planet, with a gun that shoots atom bombs on its arm.
Simone the Digger vs. Kyle Rayner is an episode that gives a ton of great fight potential from the concept alone. Simone is an amazing character with an interesting mecha power set, and Kyle can definitely do a lot beyond the normal Lantern member. However, I've only seen the original Gurren Lagann anime, and I haven't seen the movies, and I haven't gotten too much experience with Kyle. Simone's analysis was downright inspiring, following his journey from a humble digger, to his loss of Kamina, to the craziness of Spiral Power's potential. Kyle's analysis is pretty good too, giving a more down-to-earth take on Kyle's life, then going into each Lantern ring, to then showing how out there Kyle's powers can get, from his constructs to the White Lantern ring. Now for the fight. It was animated by Assassin Knight, Larry Winwood, Origin the Hero, and Zach Watkins, and it looks absolutely gorgeous as a hand-drawn fight. Gurren Lagann looks highly detailed and fluid in motion, and Kyle's constructs are bright and creatively utilized. Simone is voiced by Kieran Reagan, and he feels the charisma of adult Simone, with his non-stop drive to fighting and willpower, especially with his monologues and his insane shout. Kyle is voiced by Brandon Acosta, and it's a character with barely any media where he's voiced to work off of. I think he nailed it, being a casual guy just doing his job, to his might when he monologues beside Simone, to his manipulation to try to make Simone give up, to his epic reciting of the Green Lantern Oath. It really makes me wish Kyle had more media outside of comics, and to say nothing about the track would be an insult. Spiral of Emotion is an awe-inspiring track, as it's a successor to the fan commissioned track Will of the Drill, which I'd argue exceeds it in its intensity. It also features Sif Ui, who really helps make the song god tier, from the inspiring vocals to its callbacks, to the ending Stars Are Forming shout. I absolutely love this track. I also love the escalation of the fight from using basic hits and constructs on Earth, to Tengen Toppa fighting a giant Superman, to Super Tengen Toppa facing drills from every Lantern Corps, to a climactic last stand where both are down to just themselves, and they engage in a fistfight before Simone finally pushes through the plow through Kyle's ring and his face. And the death was really respectful, as Kyle has no bitterness inside as he passes his ring towards Simone. The post-analysis was really complex and interesting to dig into, seeing how Simone and Kyle could think of anything to counter each other, to how Kyle had the limit on his lantern while Simone can always get stronger. This is an episode I'm willing to call perfect. It captures what I love about Simone's journey and victory, as well as making me really like the character as obscure as Kyle. Definitely give this one a watch.
I'm gonna, do the card game or something. That's canon, right? I mean, the card game could be canon. Jesus isn't canon. I don't even... Fuck this. I'm gonna do that. Maybe I'll even play Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know. Fuck it.
No surprise, this would be my favorite episode of not just this season, but of all time. Yeah, I said it. Despite the fact that Ash lost, I still managed to love this episode. At the time I'm recording this, I have watched most of the Pokemon anime, as I am currently working on Master Journeys, and Ash is one of my favorite characters of all of fiction. And with Yu-Gi-Oh!, despite not growing up with it, I've watched through all of Duel Monsters as well as the Dark Side of Dimensions movie, and Yugi and Atem are really cool characters, with a variety of monsters and spells, so I was really excited for this episode. Ash's analysis was a trip down memory lane with tons of fun callbacks to moments from the anime, going into tons of Ash's Pokemon, to his driving bond with them, to his victory over Leon and his emotional send-off. Also, Horizon's mentioned. Y'all really need to give Horizons a chance. Don't just hate on it just because it doesn't have Ash. Yugi's analysis was also great with its callbacks, going into the terrifying manga Atem, as well as bringing in other monsters and characters beyond Duel Monsters, along with highlighting Yugi's relationship with Atem despite being a goddamn cheater. The fight was all I could have asked for, being done by Luis Cruz, Origin the Hero, David Fisher, and Project Alpha 22, and it looks so good with every model has this bright look to them, and frankly has better looking models than any modern Pokemon game these days. Hey, so this line was written before Winds and Waves, so yeah. Ash is voiced by Elsie Lovelock, and she does a great impression as post-4Kids Ash, as she sounds very determined and ready to battle, especially in the end with encouraging Pikachu with a softer tone before yelling out the Z move. Yugi and Atem are both voiced by Tom Schalk, and he has great range working as both, with the grander and older sounding Pharaoh to the softer but locked in Yugi. Along with them came several voice actors for the individual monsters, and hey, is that Howie Raikou?
Your Honor, it was not my fault. He jumped. Believe it or not, the track jumped.
Yeah, so be sure to subscribe to that guy. The track is also perfect. Millennial Monsters captures the classic 2000s energy of these characters, especially since it features Jason Page, you know, the original singer of Pokemon's first opening, along with the lyrics of how these characters will never stop doing what they love to reach the top of their worlds. We get tons of cool moments from the starting spar, to Ash's Pokemon rushing in, as Atem summons out tons of dual monsters to go against them, Slifer and Gengar being used to defeat more monsters, and the moment where Greninja breaks the Millennial puzzle, as Atem feels a sense of guilt before Yugi believes in the heart of the cards, you dumb cheater. Then the moment where Ash's Pokemon are paused by Zora's revealing light, until Ash and Pikachu decide to make one last stand to beat Yugi, showing off all of Ash's past outfits, until in classic Yu-Gi-Oh fashion, Magic Cylinder sends the Thunderbolt to petrify Ash and all his Pokemon. You stupid cheater. As much as people make fun of this episode for being a stomp, the team had the decency to have Yugi show respect for Ash, along with implying that Ash can come back with a rainbow wing. Absolute cinema. The ending honestly was not that cruel to Ash than I thought, as Ash earned the edge of experience as well as matching Yugi in Bond and other tactics. It's only that Yugi had better powers, strategies, and monsters to use. I still stand by this being my favorite episode. Despite how gut-wrenching it felt that Ash lost, the team really cared for him and Yugi, which is more than I could say than other classic episodes that dunk on other characters. And hey, if it means any consultation, they did put Ash's scaling higher than Goku. No, I'm not joking. I'm gonna take a win where I can, guys. Overall, this season is spectacular. We got tons more episodes showing the passion and love for these characters, and hate, looking at you, Mahito, than ever before. With only one hiccup, you can argue this season is still really great. We got episodes with amazing stories, stylized hand-drawn animations, great characterization, an incredible live-action episode, fire music, a tribute episode, and a willingness to improve and grow as a team. I still love the death battle even 10 years later. Heck, for a lot of people, it has been 15 years, and there's a good reason why. Because beneath the negativity and people bashing the show for being wrong or inaccurate, lies passion. Passion that will only grow with time. I have no idea what the future holds. Well, actually, I kind of do because 3 of my predictions actually came true. But what I mean is, I can always look to Death Battle as one of my favorite pieces of media to enjoy. And honestly, that's not stopping anytime soon. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, click that bell icon, and be sure to check out my Patreon to help support me making videos. And be sure to leave a comment to see what you want to see from me in the future. See y'all soon.